The son gave his father an Apache slave girl as a gift, and the father didn't expect what would happen. The town lay quietly under the warm glow of the late afternoon sun. Dusty streets stretched between simple wooden houses, and the distant sound of horses' hooves echoed softly in the still air. Children played near the well, their laughter mingling with the low hum of everyday life. In this small frontier town, everyone knew everyone else, and news traveled quickly, often before the sun had fully set. John Marshall, a young man of 22, walked briskly down the main street, a mixture of excitement and pride on his face. He held the reins of a horse, and behind him, riding slowly, was a girl he had brought from the nearby lands. She was young, no older than 15, with dark eyes that reflected fear, curiosity, and a cautious hope. Her long black hair fell in waves down her back, and she wore simple clothing, tied together with strips of cloth that John had given her. She sat quietly on her horse, looking straight ahead, saying nothing. John's father, William Marshall, stood at the edge of their property, leaning against the wooden railing of their porch. He was a tall man, with broad shoulders and a strong presence that commanded respect. His face was marked by years of hard work and careful judgment. People trusted William because he had always been fair, wise, and strong in his decisions. He watched as his son approached with the unusual companion, curiosity and concern knitting his brows. As they drew closer, John's excitement grew. "Father," he called out, his voice loud and proud, "look what I've brought for you." William's eyes widened slightly as he looked at the girl. For a moment he said nothing, simply observing. The girl lowered her gaze, sensing his reaction. She had never seen a man like him before, so imposing yet calm, with eyes that seemed to see everything at once. She didn't speak, though she wanted to. Words were hard for her in this strange place where no one understood her language fully. John, misunderstanding his father's silence, quickly added, "Isn't she wonderful? I thought you'd be pleased. She can help around the house, and she will make a fine companion for our family." He grinned, expecting praise or at least a smile. William remained quiet, his hands tightening slightly around the railing. He had faced many challenges in his life, but this gift caught him completely off guard. His mind raced. He had raised John to be thoughtful, to understand people and respect them. But here was a gesture that seemed wrong, though he couldn't put his feelings into words immediately. He could see the girl's eyes, wide with uncertainty, and he felt a strange mix of responsibility and concern. The girl's presence was quiet yet powerful. She did not speak, but her eyes told stories of long journeys, hardships, and survival in lands far different from this town. William noticed how she held herself carefully, aware of the new surroundings and the strange man who had brought her here. He could see her strength, though subtle, hidden behind the fear that made her appear fragile. John continued to boast. "I thought you'd appreciate this, Father. People respect a man who can show he has influence and power. This will make everyone admire you." He was unaware that his words carried a weight that made William uneasy. Respect and admiration were earned through kindness and justice, not through possessions or gifts of people. William finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "John, why did you bring her here?" John's face fell slightly. He had expected praise, not a question that carried such judgment. I thought you would like it. She's skilled. She can help and, well, it seemed like the right thing to do." William shook his head slowly, looking at his son with a mixture of disappointment and concern. "John, people are not things to be given or received. She is a human being with her own thoughts, feelings, and life. Do you understand that?" John hesitated. His father's words were heavy, but he had not thought deeply about the consequences. He had only thought about impressing his father and showing off. The girl remained silent, sensing the tension but not understanding the words. Over the next few hours, William observed her quietly. He saw her careful movements as she dismounted the horse, how she adjusted her clothing, and how she glanced around with cautious curiosity. He realized she was not just a girl from the nearby lands. She carried knowledge, resilience, and experience that spoke of a life far more challenging than any they had faced. She had survived dangers that their comfortable town could never imagine. William decided to test her character gently, asking simple questions and observing her reactions. She responded with gestures, simple actions, and a few words she knew in English, showing intelligence, quick learning, and an ability to adapt. William felt a quiet admiration growing inside him. This girl, who was meant to be a mere gift, was already teaching lessons in patience, respect, and understanding. John, on the other hand, grew restless. He could not understand why his father was not immediately praising him or recognizing the girl as a gift that showed his cleverness. He watched with a mixture of irritation and disbelief as his father and the girl communicated silently, learning from each other in ways John had never expected. As the evening settled, the town began to stir with curiosity. Neighbors peered from windows, and whispers spread through the streets about John's unusual gift. Some expressed admiration for his supposed generosity, while others felt unease, sensing that something about this situation was not right. William knew that the eyes of the town would soon demand action, but he wanted to handle the matter carefully, without causing harm or embarrassment. By nightfall, the girl had been shown a small room in the house. She moved quietly, arranging her few belongings with care. William observed from a distance, noting how she took ownership of her space respectfully yet confidently. He realized that the situation required careful guidance and protection. She was no longer a gift or a possession. She was a young person who had been thrust into a strange world and needed understanding, patience, and respect. That night, as the wind whispered through the trees, William sat on the porch, staring at the stars. He thought about his son, the girl, and the lessons that life had unexpectedly placed before him. He understood that this was more than a simple matter of gifts or gestures. It was a test of humanity, morality, and wisdom. He vowed to guide his son toward understanding, while ensuring that the girl was treated with the dignity she deserved. Meanwhile, the girl lay on her simple bed, her mind full of wonder, fear, and hope. She thought about her journey, the strange town, and the imposing man who seemed different from others. Though she did not yet know the language fully, she sensed that something significant was about to unfold, a life that would be shaped by choices, lessons, and unexpected bonds. As sleep came, the town settled into quiet darkness, but in the Marshall household a new story was beginning, a story of growth, understanding, and the surprising ways that human connections could teach even the strongest lessons. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the small frontier town, casting golden light on the wooden roofs and dusty streets. Birds sang in the quiet, and the smell of fresh bread from the baker's oven drifted through the air. Inside the Marshall household, the girl from the nearby lands woke to the sounds of the new day. She stretched quietly, listening to the creaking floorboards and the soft murmur of William moving about. Though she was far from home and did not fully understand the language of this town, she had begun to feel a cautious sense of curiosity about this strange new world. William observed her from a distance as he prepared breakfast. He was careful not to rush her or force her into unfamiliar routines. He wanted to understand her, to learn who she was beyond what John had presented. Over the previous evening, he had seen glimpses of her strength and intelligence. She had carefully set her small room, arranged her few belongings, and even tried to communicate through gestures and broken words. William admired her patience and the quiet dignity with which she carried herself. John, however, was eager to see immediate results. He wanted to show the town that he had brought a gift of value, and he watched his father closely, hoping for praise or at least approval. "Father," he said, leaning against the railing, "she will help us. She can fetch water, clean the house, cook, and even learn quickly. You'll see, everyone will admire me for this." His voice was filled with excitement but also with a hint of impatience. William shook his head slowly. "John, she is not here to serve as a reward for you or a token of your cleverness," he said firmly. "She is a human being. She has her own thoughts, feelings, and experiences. You must understand that first before expecting anything else." The girl, who was carefully watching the interaction, tilted her head slightly. She did not fully understand the words, but the tone was clear. She sensed respect in William's voice, even as he spoke sternly to his son. A flicker of hope crossed her face. This man seemed different from others she had met. After breakfast, William decided to introduce her to simple chores, not as a task to control her, but as a way to observe her skills and learn more about her abilities. He began with small things, gathering firewood, preparing food, and tending to the small garden behind the house. She performed these tasks with quiet care, showing efficiency and thoughtfulness that surprised William. She arranged the vegetables neatly, tied the herbs with precision, and even noticed small problems in the garden that William had overlooked. John, watching all of this, grew increasingly frustrated. He had imagined that the girl would be grateful for being given to them, that she would immediately obey, and that her presence would reflect well on him. Instead, he saw her acting independently, making decisions and quietly gaining William's respect. He could not understand why she seemed so capable and why his father did not show immediate approval. Over the next few days, William spent more time with her, teaching her simple words in English and learning from her gestures and expressions. She was a fast learner, repeating words carefully and pointing to objects to indicate understanding. William marveled at her intelligence. More importantly, he saw her curiosity, the way she studied her surroundings, and how she tried to understand the people and the environment. John tried to participate in the teaching, but his impatience often got in the way. He would correct her roughly or demand faster results, which caused the girl to withdraw slightly. William noticed this and gently intervened, guiding John toward patience and understanding. "You cannot rush someone's learning or growth," he explained. "Respect and kindness will teach more than force or impatience ever could." Meanwhile, the townspeople began to take notice of the girl. Some were curious, others suspicious, and a few whispered about the unusual circumstances. William handled this carefully, speaking politely to neighbors and showing that the girl was being treated with respect and care. He wanted to prevent gossip from harming her or creating tension in the community. The girl, despite her initial fear, began to show glimpses of her personality. She laughed softly when she saw animals in the yard, particularly a small, scruffy dog that had adopted the house. She observed the birds with quiet fascination and even tried to mimic the sounds they made. William noticed these small moments and realized that she had a gentle, thoughtful nature. He began to see her not as a guest or a stranger, but as someone who could teach them about resilience, perspective, and life beyond their small town. One afternoon, a challenge arose that tested both the girl's abilities and the father's judgment. A sudden storm rolled over the town, dark clouds gathering quickly and strong winds whipping the trees. The small creek near the house began to swell with water, and William realized that if they did not act fast, parts of the garden and property could be damaged. John panicked, unsure of what to do, but the girl moved with surprising confidence. She directed William's attention to weak spots in the fences and suggested ways to secure the property, using gestures and simple words. William followed her guidance, amazed by her resourcefulness. Together, they worked quickly, reinforcing fences, moving belongings, and preparing for the storm. John could only watch, humbled by her courage and practical thinking. For the first time, he realized that this girl was far more than a simple gift. She was intelligent, brave, and capable of contributing in ways he had never imagined. After the storm passed, the town's neighbors came by, concerned about the damage. William and the girl calmly explained what had happened and how they had managed to protect the property. The neighbors were impressed, not just by the efforts but by the girl's composure and cleverness. Even John had to admit silently that she had been the key to their success. In the following days, the girl continued to adapt to her new surroundings. She learned more English words, practiced simple chores, and even began to explore small areas of the property on her own. William encouraged this independence, understanding that it was important for her to feel safe and confident. He also began teaching John in subtle ways about respect, patience, and understanding the value of human dignity. At mealtimes, conversations became more meaningful. William would ask the girl about her homeland, her experiences, and the journey she had endured. Though limited by language, she shared stories through gestures and simple words, revealing moments of courage, survival, and creativity. William listened attentively, fascinated by her resilience and the lessons she could teach not just his son, but the entire household. John, however, struggled with jealousy and frustration. He wanted admiration, recognition, and praise for bringing her, but now he saw the attention and respect shifting toward her. Slowly, he began to realize that his actions, which he had thought would make him look clever, had instead created a situation that humbled him. He felt a growing awareness that life did not work through gestures of showmanship alone. Understanding, empathy, and humility mattered far more. As the weeks passed, the bond between William and the girl strengthened. He saw her as a student, a teacher, and even a friend. She began to trust him, sharing small smiles, laughter, and quiet observations about the world around them. He, in turn, grew protective of her, ensuring that she was safe, respected, and valued. Their connection was subtle but deep, a relationship built on trust, mutual respect, and the understanding that actions had consequences beyond appearances. One evening, as the sun set in brilliant shades of orange and pink, William sat on the porch with her. He handed her a small cup of water and smiled gently. "You have taught me much," he said simply, and though she did not fully understand the words, she felt the warmth behind them. She nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. For the first time since arriving, she felt truly seen, appreciated, and safe. John watched from a distance, quiet and contemplative. The boy who had wanted to impress his father now realized that true respect and admiration were earned not through gifts or gestures, but through understanding, courage, and kindness. He saw that the girl had already changed the way they all thought about life, responsibility, and human connection. By the end of part 2, the household had begun to settle into a new rhythm. The girl was no longer simply a stranger. She was part of their lives in meaningful ways. William had learned to appreciate her strength, intelligence, and resilience. John had begun to confront his own mistakes, slowly learning the importance of empathy and humility. And the girl, though far from home and still learning, had found the first traces of trust, friendship, and hope in this new place. Life in the Marshall household was changing quietly but profoundly. Small acts of respect, courage, and understanding were laying the foundation for relationships that would grow stronger with time. The girl had arrived as a mysterious gift, but she was quickly becoming a teacher, a guide, and an important part of the family. The story of their unexpected bond had only just begun, and the days ahead promised challenges, lessons, and discoveries that none of them could yet imagine. Days turned into weeks, and the Marshall household began to settle into a rhythm that was slowly transforming everyone's life. The girl, who had arrived timid and cautious, was becoming more confident with each passing day. She moved through the house with quiet assurance, completing chores efficiently, learning new words, and observing her surroundings with keen interest. William watched her carefully, noting every small sign of her intelligence and curiosity. He realized that she was teaching lessons without even speaking much, lessons about patience, resilience, and quiet strength. John, however, still struggled with his feelings. He had expected admiration from his father and the townspeople for bringing the girl, but instead, he saw the respect and attention shift toward her. Every time William praised her efforts or listened intently to her observations, John felt a mix of frustration and jealousy. He could not understand why his father valued her insights more than his own attempts at impressing the household. Yet, deep down, he could not deny that she was remarkable, and that acknowledgement unsettled him. One morning, William decided to involve the girl in a more significant task, tending to the small livestock on their property. Chickens needed feeding, the goat required milk, and the small barn had to be cleaned. John watched as his father calmly explained the tasks, demonstrating patience and care in a way that John often overlooked. The girl followed every instruction carefully, asking questions through gestures and a few simple words she had learned. Her quick understanding and resourcefulness impressed William once again. As they worked together, a bond began to form between William and the girl that went beyond teacher and student. He noticed her determination, her quiet problem-solving skills, and the way she carefully observed each task before acting. She did not rush, yet she completed everything efficiently and thoughtfully. William began to feel a sense of admiration and protectiveness he had not expected. This girl, brought into his home as a mysterious gift, was showing him the true meaning of courage and intelligence. John, meanwhile, tried to assert himself, attempting to direct the girl's work and make her follow his orders. But she did not respond with fear or submission. Instead, she acted calmly and politely, often waiting for William's guidance rather than reacting impulsively to John's impatience. Every time this happened, John felt a pang of frustration. He wanted to be the center of attention, but the girl's quiet confidence overshadowed him. Over time, William began to use these daily tasks as opportunities to teach John lessons about respect, patience, and empathy. He would explain why rushing or commanding without understanding others was harmful, and he encouraged John to observe the girl and learn from her behavior. Slowly, John began to notice her kindness, her thoughtfulness, and the way she considered others in everything she did. He saw that she was not weak or inferior as he had assumed. She was strong, capable, and wise beyond her years. One afternoon, a small accident occurred in the barn. A young goat had wandered into a precarious position near the edge of the pen, and it was about to fall. John panicked, unsure how to react, but the girl stepped forward calmly. She moved carefully, positioning herself between the goat and danger, and gently guided it back to safety. William watched, impressed not just by her quick thinking but by the calm and confidence with which she acted. Even John, though embarrassed by his own hesitation, felt a growing respect for her. That evening, as the family gathered for dinner, William spoke about the day's events. "Today," he said, looking at John and the girl, "we all learned something important. Strength is not only measured by power or speed, it is measured by patience, wisdom, and understanding. You, my son, must learn that. And you," he added, turning to the girl, "you have shown courage and thoughtfulness beyond your years. I am proud of you." The girl smiled shyly, understanding the meaning of his words even if she could not fully grasp all the language. John, sitting quietly, felt a mix of embarrassment and admiration. For the first time, he realized that his desire for praise had been misplaced. True respect came from actions, from kindness, and from the courage to do what was right, even when it was difficult. Over the next few weeks, the household experienced another subtle shift. The girl began to share small stories from her homeland, using gestures, drawings, and broken words. She described the landscapes she had seen, the challenges she had faced, and the lessons she had learned. William listened carefully, fascinated by her experiences and the strength of character she displayed. He realized that her journey had shaped her into someone capable of remarkable insight and resilience. John, too, began to listen more attentively. Though he still struggled with impatience at times, he started to understand that learning from others, regardless of age or background, was valuable. He began to ask questions, trying to understand the girl's perspective and the ways in which her experiences could teach him lessons about courage, responsibility, and empathy. Slowly, he was learning humility, though it was a difficult lesson to accept. One day, a minor crisis occurred in the town. A small fire had broken out in a neighboring property, and the Marshall family rushed to help. William and the girl acted quickly, organizing neighbors and guiding them to contain the fire. The girl's knowledge of basic survival and quick thinking proved invaluable, and she calmly directed people to safety and action. John, witnessing her composure and effectiveness, was humbled once again. He realized that true leadership and respect were not about boasting or appearances. They were about wisdom, courage, and the ability to act decisively when it mattered most. After the fire was contained, the townspeople praised William for his leadership, but they were equally impressed by the girl's courage and intelligence. She had shown bravery and skill that many adults would have struggled to match. William felt a deep sense of pride in her, not because she was his responsibility, but because he recognized her worth and the positive impact she had on the community. John, on the other hand, felt a mixture of admiration and quiet shame. He realized that his actions had been motivated by pride, but the girl's courage had achieved more than his pride ever could. As the weeks continued, the bond between William and the girl grew stronger. He took time to teach her not just practical skills, but also lessons about patience, careful observation, and thoughtful decision-making. She absorbed these lessons eagerly, showing a keen understanding and a natural ability to apply what she learned. William began to see her as a teacher in her own right, someone who could offer guidance, insight, and wisdom beyond her years. John, observing all of this, began to change as well. He started to imitate her patience, her careful thought, and her calm approach to challenges. Though he still struggled with pride, he was slowly learning to value intelligence, courage, and empathy over appearances or material gestures. The girl's presence was teaching him a life lesson he could not have learned from anyone else. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, William, John, and the girl sat together outside, watching the sky turn shades of orange and pink. The girl picked up a small stick and began drawing in the dirt, creating patterns and images that told stories of her homeland. William and John watched in silence, marveling at her creativity and the way she expressed herself without words. William spoke softly, addressing both John and the girl. "We all have something to learn from each other," he said. "Strength is not just in the body, but in the mind and heart. Courage is not only in facing danger, but in being patient, understanding, and wise. We are all growing together, and this is a lesson that will stay with us forever." The girl smiled, understanding the meaning behind his words. John, sitting quietly, felt a sense of humility and realization he had never experienced before. He now understood that his desire to impress others had been misguided, and that true admiration was earned through actions, respect, and care for others. By the end of Part 3, the Marshall household had changed in ways that were subtle but profound. The girl had become more than just a presence in the home. She was a teacher, a guide, and a source of inspiration. William had learned to appreciate her strength, intelligence, and resilience. And John, slowly but surely, was learning the importance of humility, empathy, and understanding the value of human connection. The story of their lives was no longer about a gift, a mistake, or a display of pride. It had become a story of growth, learning, and unexpected bonds, an unfolding journey in which each person was discovering lessons about courage, patience, and respect. And as the days went on, it was clear that their lives would continue to change in ways none of them could have imagined, guided by the quiet wisdom and strength of the girl who had arrived as a simple gift, but had already transformed their world. The morning air in the small frontier town was crisp and filled with the sounds of daily life. Chickens clucked near the barns, the wind whispered through the trees, and the soft murmur of neighbors greeting each other drifted across the streets. The Marshall household had settled into a quiet routine, but beneath this calm, life was preparing to test them in a way none of them had expected. William stood on the porch, surveying the property with a thoughtful expression. The girl, who had grown more confident and capable over the past weeks, moved gracefully among the livestock, feeding the chickens and checking the small garden. John followed, still learning the lessons of patience and respect, though he struggled with lingering pride and the desire for recognition. Together, they had begun to function as a household that relied on cooperation, understanding, and mutual respect. Suddenly, a commotion arose in the distance. Smoke curled into the sky from the edge of town, accompanied by shouts and hurried footsteps. William's heart tightened. Fires were dangerous, especially in a town built largely of wood, and he knew that even a small fire could spread quickly and cause serious damage. Without hesitation, he called out to John and the girl. "We must help, quickly." John's initial reaction was panic. He wanted to impress his father by acting first, but he was unsure what to do. The girl, however, moved calmly and decisively. She pointed toward the source of the smoke, her gestures clear and confident. William followed her lead, trusting her instincts. They grabbed buckets of water, blankets, and tools to fight the fire, racing toward the danger. As they approached the house on fire, they saw that a small barn had caught alight. Flames licked the wooden walls, and smoke billowed into the sky. A few neighbors were already attempting to contain it, but their efforts were disorganized and chaotic. The girl stepped forward, directing people with gestures and a few clear words she had learned. She guided them to form a line, pass water efficiently, and protect nearby buildings. William watched in awe as she took charge with confidence and clarity. John, witnessing her leadership, felt a mixture of awe and humility. He realized that her calmness, intelligence, and courage were far greater than his own impulsive attempts at impressing others. He began to follow her instructions, working alongside the neighbors, passing water, and helping to protect the surrounding area. Though he was still learning, he understood that true leadership required patience, observation, and careful action, not pride or showmanship. The fire raged for nearly an hour, testing the strength and coordination of everyone involved. The girl remained composed, moving from person to person, offering guidance, and ensuring that each step of the process was efficient. William worked alongside her, trusting her judgment and silently acknowledging the wisdom she had already shown in so many small ways. He realized that she was not just a part of the household, but an essential presence whose courage and intelligence had saved lives and property. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the flames were contained. Smoke still rose from the charred remains of the barn, but no one was seriously injured, and the nearby houses were safe. The townspeople, exhausted but relieved, began to express their gratitude. William was praised for his leadership, but he made a point to highlight the girl's role as well. It was her quick thinking and calm guidance that helped save the town today, he told the neighbors. We are fortunate to have her among us. The girl's eyes widened slightly at the praise. She was not accustomed to such acknowledgement, and a small smile crossed her face. John, on the other hand, felt a wave of humility wash over him. He had expected admiration for bringing her into their household, but it was her actions, not his, that had earned respect. For the first time, he understood the true meaning of courage, wisdom, and leadership. In the days following the fire, the Marshall household became a quiet center of reflection and learning. The girl continued to demonstrate her skills and intelligence in everyday tasks, earning the respect of both William and John. William took the opportunity to teach John deeper lessons about character, responsibility, and the value of observing and learning from others. He explained that life often presented unexpected challenges, and that how one responded to these challenges defined true strength and respect. John began to change. He listened more carefully, observed more intently, and started to approach tasks with thoughtfulness rather than impatience. He still struggled at times, but the lessons were sinking in. He noticed that the girl's quiet confidence and wisdom were shaping not only her own actions, but also the way he approached life. He began to understand that the measure of a person was not in outward appearances or gestures, but in their courage, kindness, and ability to act wisely in difficult situations. The girl, meanwhile, had grown more comfortable in her surroundings. She explored small areas of the town, learned new words, and shared stories from her homeland through gestures and drawings. William listened attentively, fascinated by her experiences and the strength of character she displayed. Her journey had shaped her into someone capable of remarkable insight and courage, and he realized that the lessons she taught were far more valuable than any material wealth or conventional gift. One afternoon, William asked her to help him repair a damaged fence near the creek. While they worked, she suggested a stronger method for securing the posts, using a technique she had learned in her homeland. William listened carefully, impressed by her practical knowledge and resourcefulness. Together, they repaired the fence, blending her method with his own experience. John observed quietly, realizing once again that true learning came from collaboration and respect for others, knowledge. As the weeks passed, a sense of unity and understanding settled over the household. The girl was no longer a stranger or a gift. She was a respected member of the family, whose courage, intelligence, and kindness had transformed their daily life. William felt a deep sense of pride, not in ownership or possession, but in the acknowledgement of her strength and the lessons she had imparted. John, slowly learning humility, began to see the world in a new light, appreciating the value of empathy, patience, and collaboration. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the Marshall family gathered outside. The girl picked up a stick and began drawing patterns in the dirt, telling a story of her journey through gestures and simple words. William and John watched in silence, marveling at her creativity, wisdom, and resilience. William spoke softly, addressing both John and the girl. "We have all learned something important," he said. "Life will challenge us in ways we do not expect. True courage and strength are measured not by pride or possessions, but by wisdom, kindness, and the ability to act with care when it matters most." The girl smiled, understanding the warmth and respect in his voice. John, sitting quietly, felt a profound realization. He now understood that his desire to impress others had been misguided, and that true admiration was earned through actions, respect, and courage. The events of the fire, the challenges of daily life, and the lessons shared had transformed him in ways he could not have imagined. In the following days, the town began to recognize the girl as more than a guest or a curiosity. Her intelligence, courage, and resourcefulness earned her respect from neighbors and townspeople alike. William made a point to ensure that she was treated fairly and kindly, and John began to take pride in supporting her efforts rather than seeking recognition for himself. Their household had become a small center of learning, respect, and unexpected friendship. By the end of Part 4, the Marshall family had experienced a profound transformation. The girl had proven her worth through her courage, intelligence, and resourcefulness, earning respect and admiration from both the family and the community. William had learned to see her as an individual with agency and strength, and John had begun to understand the importance of humility, empathy, and thoughtful action. The challenges they faced had strengthened their bonds, teaching them lessons that would stay with them for the rest of their lives. The story had moved far beyond the initial idea of a gift. It was now about growth, courage, respect, and the unexpected ways that life could teach lessons. The girl, once a timid stranger, had become a teacher, a guide, and a vital presence in the Marshall household. William had grown as a father and mentor, and John had begun the journey of understanding what it truly meant to respect, learn from, and value others. As the sun set behind the hills, casting long shadows over the quiet town, the Marshall household sat together on the porch, reflecting on all that had transpired. They knew that life would continue to bring challenges and lessons, but they also knew that together, they could face whatever came their way. The girl's arrival had been unexpected, but her presence had changed everything, leaving them stronger, wiser, and more connected than they had ever been. The weeks passed slowly, bringing with them a sense of calm and reflection to the Marshall household. Life on the frontier continued, with the daily rhythm of chores, learning, and interaction between neighbors providing structure and purpose. But beneath this routine, profound changes had taken place, changes in the way the family thought, acted, and understood the world around them. The girl, who had once arrived timid and uncertain, had become an integral part of their lives. She moved through the house with quiet confidence, managing chores, helping in the garden, and even assisting William with more complex tasks like repairing tools or organizing supplies. Her language skills had improved steadily, allowing her to communicate more effectively with both William and John. But more importantly, she had become a teacher in subtle ways, teaching lessons about patience, courage, empathy, and resilience without ever demanding recognition. John, too, had changed in ways that were noticeable to everyone in the household. He no longer sought attention or praise for minor accomplishments. He listened carefully, observed more closely, and approached each task with thoughtfulness and care. He still struggled at times with impatience, but he had begun to understand the deeper lessons his father and the girl were teaching him. He realized that true respect and admiration were not given automatically. They were earned through actions, character, and kindness. William observed both of them with a quiet sense of pride. The girl's strength and intelligence had challenged his own assumptions, and he had come to respect her as a person of remarkable courage and wisdom. John's growth, though gradual, demonstrated the power of example, patience, and reflection. William understood that the events of the past weeks, the girl's arrival, the fire, and the daily challenges of life, had transformed their household into something stronger, wiser, and more connected. One morning, as the sun rose over the small town, a messenger arrived from a neighboring community. The town was holding a meeting to discuss safety measures and community support, and the message requested William's presence. William prepared to leave, and the girl offered to accompany him, eager to contribute. John, now more thoughtful, insisted that he should also go, realizing that participation and service were more valuable than recognition or pride. At the meeting, the townspeople discussed ways to improve safety, organize resources, and support families in case of emergencies like fires or storms. William spoke calmly and wisely, highlighting the lessons they had learned from the recent fire. But it was the girl who captured everyone's attention. She suggested practical measures, explained methods to protect property, and even demonstrated quick strategies for moving supplies and animals safely. Her confidence and intelligence impressed everyone present, including those who had been skeptical when she first arrived. John watched silently, feeling a mix of humility and admiration. He realized that his initial desire to impress his father and the town had been misguided. True respect and value came not from gestures or possessions, but from courage, wisdom, and the ability to act with care in difficult situations. He began to understand that the girl, who had seemed so vulnerable at first, had taught him lessons that no amount of pride or boasting could ever convey. After the meeting, William, John, and the girl walked home together, discussing the plans and ideas shared by the community. William spoke gently, addressing both John and the girl. "We have all learned something important," he said. "Life often challenges us in ways we do not expect. The lessons we gain from these challenges shape who we are, and the people we learn from are sometimes the most surprising teachers." The girl smiled, understanding the respect and warmth in his voice. She had found not only a safe place in this household, but also a sense of belonging and purpose. John, walking beside them, felt a deep sense of gratitude and realization. He now understood the meaning of humility, the importance of empathy, and the value of learning from those around him. In the days that followed, life in the Marshall household settled into a harmonious rhythm. The girl continued to contribute to daily tasks, offer guidance, and share stories from her homeland. William continued to mentor both John and the girl, teaching them about responsibility, courage, and the importance of thoughtful action. And John, once impatient and prideful, had become a young man who observed carefully, acted wisely, and valued the lessons he received from others. One afternoon, while tending the garden together, the girl spoke softly, using the words she had learned in English. "I happy here," she said, her voice gentle but full of meaning. William smiled warmly. "We are happy to have you with us," he replied. John, standing nearby, nodded in agreement. For the first time, he felt genuine pride, not pride in himself, but pride in understanding, in growth, and in the respect they had all developed for one another. As the sun began to set, the Marshall family sat outside on the porch, watching the sky turn brilliant shades of orange and pink. The girl picked up a small stick and drew patterns in the dirt, telling a story of her journey using gestures and simple words. William and John watched in silence, marveling at her creativity, intelligence, and resilience. It was a quiet, peaceful moment, yet it carried immense significance, a reflection of all they had learned, experienced, and shared. William spoke softly, addressing both John and the girl. "Life will continue to challenge us in ways we cannot predict," he said. "But if we remember the lessons we have learned about patience, courage, and respect, we will be ready. And we will grow stronger together, as a family and as a community." The girl nodded, understanding the meaning behind his words. John, sitting quietly, felt a profound realization. He now knew that the true measure of a person was not in what they owned, or in gestures meant to impress others, but in their character, courage, and ability to care for and learn from those around them. In the following weeks, the Marshall household became a small center of learning and inspiration in the town. Neighbors often came for advice, to observe the girl's skills, or to seek William's guidance. The girl's reputation for intelligence, courage, and resourcefulness grew, and she was recognized as a valued member of the community. John, now more humble and thoughtful, began to assist her in teaching younger children and sharing the lessons they had learned together. As the months passed, the bond between William, John, and the girl grew stronger. They had faced challenges, learned difficult lessons, and discovered the power of respect, courage, and empathy. The girl, once a timid stranger brought as a gift, had become a teacher, a friend, and an essential part of their lives. William had learned to value her intelligence, courage, and humanity, while John had grown from a prideful young man into someone who understood the deeper meaning of respect, humility, and thoughtful action. One evening, as the first stars appeared in the clear night sky, William, John, and the girl sat together by the fire. The girl shared another story from her homeland, using gestures, simple words, and small drawings in the dirt. William and John listened intently, appreciating not only the story itself, but the lessons it carried about resilience, courage, and the strength of the human spirit. William spoke softly, reflecting on the journey they had all experienced together. "We have learned much in these past months," he said. "We have learned that true strength comes from courage and wisdom, that respect and admiration are earned through action, and that the people we learn from can appear in the most unexpected ways. The girl smiled, understanding the meaning of his words. John, sitting quietly, felt a deep sense of gratitude and understanding. He realized that life's most important lessons often came from unexpected places, and that the growth they had all experienced together was more valuable than any recognition, reward, or material possession. By the end of Part 5, the Marshall household had been transformed. The girl had proven her courage, intelligence, and resourcefulness, earning respect and admiration from both the family and the community. William had learned to see her as an individual with agency and strength, and John had embraced humility, empathy, and thoughtful action. The challenges they faced had strengthened their bonds, creating a household built on trust, respect, and shared learning. The story of the girl's arrival, once a simple gift, had evolved into a story of growth, courage, and unexpected lessons. It was a story that demonstrated the power of empathy, understanding, and the bonds that form when people learn from one another. The Marshall household was no longer defined by gestures or appearances. It was defined by character, wisdom, and the shared journey of three people who had discovered the true meaning of respect, courage, and humanity. As the night settled over the quiet town, the three sat together, watching the stars twinkle above. Their hearts were full of understanding, their minds rich with lessons learned, and their spirits strengthened by the bonds they had formed. The girl, once an uncertain stranger, had become a teacher and guide. William had grown in wisdom and respect, and John had begun his journey into maturity, guided by humility and the lessons of courage and empathy. Life would continue to bring challenges, but the Marshall household was prepared. They had faced danger, uncertainty, and pride, and had emerged stronger, wiser, and more connected than ever. The girl's presence had changed everything, leaving a lasting mark on their hearts and shaping the lives of the family and the community in ways that would be remembered for years to come. The sun rose the next morning with the promise of new experiences, challenges, and lessons. But for William, John, and the girl, the most important journey had already begun, the journey of understanding, respect, and the unexpected ways in which life teaches its most meaningful lessons. They had discovered that true strength lies in courage, humility, and empathy, and that the bonds formed through shared experiences are more valuable than any material gift or outward display. And so the Marshall household continued, bound together not by appearances or possessions, but by respect, wisdom, and the shared journey of growth, courage, and humanity. The story that began with a simple gift had become a powerful lesson in life, teaching all who witnessed it that the greatest value lies not in what we give or receive, but in how we understand, respect, and grow with one another.